Tuesday is Election Day in Texas, the Democratic and Republican primary runoffs. We are closely watching that Republican Attorney General race between Ken Paxton and challenger George P. Bush. Matt Mackowiak is with us to give us his prediction. There's also a race on the ballot he thinks is a toss-up. Mackowiak is a Republican consultant. Matt, thank you so much for being with us. We sure appreciate your time this morning.
Pleasure.
So I think most eyes are going to be on that Republican Attorney General's race. So tell us what you're expecting.
Yeah, I think most observers that look at this believe that the incumbent, Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, will be renominated. I think you might see a 60-40 margin ultimately. You have to remember our statewide primary runoffs are a subset of a subset. It really is kind of the base of the base. And George P. Bush, the land commissioner who's been challenging Attorney General Paxton, has been trying to make arguments on ethics, on performance, and it just doesn't appear that those arguments are gaining traction.
Let's talk about the Democratic side of that ballot. Do you think that either Joe Jaworski or Rochelle Garza, does either potentially have more strength to mount a really strong general campaign in November?
Well, I think Democrats want to run against Paxton. I think they believe that they can make the race competitive. Now, the overall environment is going to contribute to whether that's possible or not. It certainly looks like it's going to be a Republican year. The question is going to be, can they raise enough money to give themselves a chance to defeat a Republican incumbent in a Republican year? And what we will also be looking for is to see whether the kind of arguments that George P. Bush has been making on ethics, whether those work in a general election once those arguments are made by the Democratic nominee.
Besides the Attorney General's race, we have some congressional races, also the Democratic Lieutenant Governor runoff. So what else are you going to be closely watching?
Yeah, I mean, you have, like you said, the Democratic Lieutenant Governor runoff between the candidate last time, Mike Collier, accountant from Houston, former, I believe, finance chair of the Texas Democratic Party, and a former state rep, or I guess a current state rep named Michelle Beckley from the DFW area. I'm kind of surprised in the Dallas Morning News UT Tyler poll from earlier this week. Both of those candidates were really well below 50%. So that shows there's a very high undecided number if that polling is even close to accurate. So I think that's a toss-up. Collier has the advantage of having run statewide before. I really think the AG race is really the only major race apart from governor that the Democrats truly believe they have a chance to make competitive. I don't believe the governor's race will be competitive in the final analysis, but the Attorney General's race is going to be more competitive than any other statewide race if Paxton's nominated.
Let's talk about that governor's race. Looking ahead to November, polling indicates it looks like Greg Abbott is going to have the tightest race maybe of his career. Yet we have not seen any sort of pivot to the middle to court the independents. So is that something that Republicans just do not need to do anymore in the state of Texas?
Great question. Look, we're not quite in the general election yet, right? The primary runoff's going on. You have these other candidates that are running. The governor's focused on doing his job. He's been focused on border security and these other issues. Except that Texas is a Republican state, Beto needs to move to the middle much more than Greg Abbott does. And so far, Beto really hasn't meaningfully done that.
5.5 months to go. All right, Matt, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.